The 1980s was a decade brimming with iconic pop culture, and its collectibles continue to hold sentimental value for those who lived through it. While many items from the era remain cherished treasures, some have fallen into obscurity over time, becoming forgotten relics of a vibrant, colorful era. Here are the top 10 forgotten collectibles from the 80s that once ruled the shelves but have since faded into the background. 1. Cabbage Patch Kids. These quirky, soft-bodied dolls became a global phenomenon in the early 1980s. Originally created by Xavier Roberts, the dolls generated wild demand, with long lines and even brawls breaking out at stores. While Cabbage Patch Kids were incredibly popular for a few years, their frenzy eventually faded, and they are now more of a nostalgic reminder of 80s toy crazes. 2. Rubik's Cube. The Rubik's Cube is still somewhat recognized today, but its massive popularity during the 1980s has diminished over time. While the cube became synonymous with the decade and sparked a worldwide puzzle craze, it's now more of a novelty item than a mainstay in the world of collectibles. Nevertheless, vintage Rubik's Cubes from the era remain a favorite for collectors. 3. He-Man Action Figures. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was one of the most successful toy lines of the 80s, with action figures that were loved by children. Characters like He-Man, Skeletor, and Battle Cat were staples of many childhoods. While they're still cherished by collectors today, they aren't as well known among younger generations, making them a forgotten treasure for those who grew up with them. 4. G.I. Joe Action Figures. G.I. Joe action figures dominated toy shelves in the 80s, accompanied by their own animated TV show and comic series. With their 3.75-inch size and highly detailed accessories, these figures were highly collectible. Although still remembered by hardcore fans, their popularity has waned over time, especially with the rise of other toy franchises and digital entertainment. 5. Star Wars Action Figures. The Star Wars action figures from the 80s, especially those tied to The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, were once everywhere. While Star Wars memorabilia is still hugely popular, many of the figures from the 1980s have lost some of their mainstream appeal. Some of these toys, however, are incredibly valuable today and still highly sought after by collectors. 6. The original NES games. The original Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, revolutionized video gaming in the 80s, but many of the games from that time are now difficult to find. Titles like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid are still widely recognized, but some lesser-known gems from the early NES library, like Kid Icarus or Ice Climber, have been largely forgotten, making them interesting collectibles for vintage gaming enthusiasts. 7. Care Bears Plush Toys. Care Bears were originally created as characters for greeting cards but soon became the stars of their own animated TV show and an entire toy line. These colorful, cheerful bears with the unique belly symbols were hugely popular in the 80s. Today, while still beloved by fans, they're not as prominent in pop culture, though vintage plush Care Bears remain a sought-after collectible for nostalgia buffs. 8. My Little Pony. In the 1980s, My Little Pony was a huge craze, with brightly colored ponies and their accessories flooding toy stores. These toys often came with combs and brushes for the pony's colorful manes, and each pony had its own unique personality. While My Little Pony has seen several revivals over the years, the original 80s versions are considered nostalgic gems, though they are no longer as central to the toy market. 9. Voltron Lions. Voltron, the giant robot formed by 5 smaller lions, was an immensely popular animated TV show and toy series in the 80s. Collecting the 5 lions to create Voltron was a major goal for kids at the time, and the action figures and associated toys are now considered vintage collectibles. Although Voltron has had reboots and has a dedicated fanbase, the original 80s toys remain largely forgotten by younger generations. 10. Pogs. Pogs, also known as milk caps, were a popular game and collectible in the 80s, with kids trading and playing with cardboard discs featuring various designs. The craze was short-lived, but during its peak, Pogs were everywhere, often depicting popular characters, sports teams, and bands. While they may seem insignificant now, the nostalgia for Pogs has led to a resurgence among collectors interested in these quirky, limited edition discs. The 1980s were a time of tremendous creativity and innovation, and the collectibles that emerged from this period hold a special place in the hearts of those who experienced them. While some of these items have remained relevant through the years, many have faded into obscurity, making them hidden gems for vintage collectors seeking a slice of 80s nostalgia. Whether through action figures, plush toys, or video games, these forgotten treasures from the past remind us of an era that shaped the pop culture landscape we know today.